Okay, for this lesson in rhythm circles, we're going to talk about syncopation with eighth notes and quarter notes. So you should be really good about understanding that an eighth note, or two eighth notes and one quarter note take up the same amount of time. So the quarter note takes the entire beat, while the eighth note takes up half of the beat. Each eighth note takes up half of the beat. So when you put two eighth notes together, then you have a full beat. So you should be good about that. You should be on your way to understanding that really well. One of the things that is hard to do in music is when you have an eighth rest followed by an eighth note, especially on beat one, because we always want to start things right at the beginning of the measure. And it's hard for us to rest on beat one and then play on the and. So if you had something like this where you rest on beat one and then that rhythm, it would sound like this. 2, 3, 4, and 2 and 3, 4. Ta, 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 ta. So this first part of the first beat is a rest, and then the second part is played. It's articulated on the and of the beat. Now, and that should be pretty easy for you. But now what I want to do is talk a little bit about putting eighth notes and quarter notes together, but instead of starting with a quarter note and then going to an eighth note, sorry, that was not really good. Let me draw that again. And then going to an eighth note, and then maybe back to a quarter note. That's pretty easy. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Ta, 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 ta. We should be pretty good at that. And even if we start with eighth notes, and then have quarter notes in the middle or something like that, and then eighth notes, this should be very easy for you. Ta, 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 ta. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and. What I would like to talk about on this lesson is if we start with a single eighth note and then have rhythms after that. So if I did this, started with an eighth note, then had quarter notes throughout most of the rest of the measure, it would put us articulating things on the ands of the beat. So this would be on one, this would be on and we know that quarter notes get a full beat or two halves of a beat, because two halves equal a whole. But this one starts on the and goes all the way to 2. So this whole part, the first or the second half of the first circle and the first half of the second circle, get sound. And then we're also going to do that on the next and. It's going to go from the and of 2 to beat 3. And then again, on the next quarter note, it's going to go from the and of 3 to beat 4. And then you're going to end on the and of 4. So that would be 1 and. Ta, 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 ta. Another thing that you could do is, another thing that causes syncopation is if you have eighth notes but a quarter note two eighth notes but a quarter note in between them. So something like this. This would be 1, and that would only get the first half because it's an eighth note. We know it's an eighth note because it has that flag. This would be the and it's a quarter note, so it gets two halves of a beat. So that would be and 2. Here's an eighth note that would only get the and then another eighth note that would only get 3. And then a quarter note that goes from and all the way to 4. And then finally an eighth note on and. So this rhythm would go 1 and 3 and. Ta 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 ta. So this is just an introduction to some syncopated rhythms that start with an eighth note or even start with an eighth rest, because even if you have an eighth rest here and a quarter note, it's still the same thing. This gets 1, and that still gets a full beat starting on the end of 1. And let's just finish it out here. So with that rest, it would sound like this. Ta, 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 ta. So you just don't play, or you just don't sing or articulate on beat 1. So let's do our other rhythm that we had. So we had this, an eighth rest on 1 and an eighth rest on 3 with eighth notes on the end of 2 and end of 3. So that would sound like this. Ta, 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 ta. 1, and. Okay, so again, that's just a little bit of syncopation using quarter notes, eighth notes, and eighth rests.